Hello. I hope we have people out there. I'm not sure. Oh, we do have some participants. That's great. Good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to come and join the conversation tonight. I've been asked to talk about men and mental health. Two distinct categories, I must say. So apologies about that. Just had a reminder flash up on my screen. Let me get rid of that. So a little bit about me. My name's Euan McPherson. I'm the Chief Executive at Services for Independent Living. I have a history of mental health issues and have experience of both inpatient and outpatient facilities. And I'm currently a chief executive of an organisation that employs over 100 people across Herefordshire, and a mental health first aid instructor for one-day champions and the two-day first aider course. I've also done a lot of work within SIL to support people with mental health issues, partly because we acknowledged very early on that a large number of staff working in our sector, which is essentially disability and home care sector, have mental health issues, and we wanted to do some work to support them, which is why I undertook mental health first aid training. We've made that mandatory training for all of our staff, and seen some remarkable changes in our organisation as a result, for the better. So greatly reduced sickness rates and greatly reduced staff turnover, and discussions on a regular basis about mental health, about stress, about pressures at work, which is always a good thing, you know. So a constant theme, I think you'll see if you logged in last week and listened to David, is that talking about mental health is really, really positive. So that's where my interest has come from personal experience, and then going on to train as a mental health first aid instructor and putting some of that into practice at Services for Independent Living. We do offer out the 1 and 2 day mental health first aid training via SIL. Please have a look at our website, www.s4il.co.uk, for upcoming courses. In fact, we're running one Monday, Tuesday next week. And through that, I think I identified an issue that many men face, and set up Hereford Men's Mental Health Group with the support of my friend and now colleague Paul Stevens. And we set it up really following a discussion that we had around there being a gap really for men, and we'll come back to that. Because I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little. Because I'd like to start, if I could, by being a little interactive, and I'd like your engagement with me, if I could. And I want to start by asking you a question, really. When I say mental health, what is it that comes to your mind? What phrase or word is come to your mind? If you use the comments box, type into the comments box words or phrases that come to mind when I say mental health, and we're going to start writing them up behind me. So unfortunately, the technology platform has not allowed me to do this on screen, which I would normally do. For some reason, YouTube won't let me do that. So I'm going to go back to paper and pencil. So I'm filling desperately while you type away. While you do that, I'm going to put up some words that come up often in the training that I do. The first one, very often, is depression. Okay, very often a word that comes up. Judith, thank you very much for that. So Judith's already used the chat function down there and put a feeling of well-being. Okay. Yeah, really good, really good. Some of the other things that come up are unable to cope. Our ability, there's another one. Mental health is not always a negative thing. It's quite true. So I was going to say, one of the comments that comes up often is the ability to cope with life's ups and downs. So not unable to cope, but the ability to cope. Probably get a better view of me when I'm staring that way, to be fair. Crazy, don't need it. Poor people, poor uneducated people feel sorry for them. Glad I'm not one of them. Feel guilty when I say this, but it's true. That's an interesting point of view, Jonah. And I think it will feed into some of the discussion that we have later on, which is about stigma. Stigma in mental health is a big thing. Certainly, you don't need to feel sorry for me. And I suffer with mental health issues, and I'm doing okay, thanks. Mental health means to help and support without judgment in a safe place. Thank you, Judith. Help and support. Okay. Bipolar is one of the things that comes up often, as would other medical conditions. So schizophrenia, but I'm not going to try and spell it because I suffer with creative spelling, and I'm not going to do that in public. Schizophrenia, bipolar, eating disorders, those sort of things come up when people talk about mental health, as well as well-being, which Judith mentioned right up front. And I think that's really important, because when we talk about mental health, we're not talking about a fixed point. Okay. And we are talking about a continuum. So, and the reality is, we all have mental health, and we all have mental health that fluctuates from good mental health, where I'm feeling resilient and capable, confident. I feel like I can do anything. I can go anywhere. I can be who I want to be, and I have no worries. Rare that we feel completely like that, if we're honest. Down to here, which is poor mental health, where at its most extreme, I can't make decisions. I feel lethargic. I feel that I'm not in control, and I generally feel really unwell and unable to cope with myself, all those things that are going on around me. Okay, so we have a continuum. And most of us exist somewhere in the middle, to be quite honest. We have up days, we have bad days. We have times when we feel on top of the world. We have times when we're feeling a bit low and we don't really want to get out of bed and go to work. Yeah. And I think most of us can relate to that we move up and down here. So mental health is a term that should be fully acceptable to all of us. It's something we all have and something we all live with. When mental health becomes mental ill health, that's slightly different. And mental ill health is when people start to move down to this end here, okay, and spend more time down here than up here. And when it starts to impact upon somebody's life and the way they lead their life is when something like low mood can become depression. Okay, I hope that makes sense to people. Continue to use the comments boxes if you want to throw anything up or ask any questions as we go along. Okay, so little introduction as to the term mental health and what it means to us, and the fact that we all have it, and it's not a bad thing. It can be really, really positive, and it's not a fixed point. I want to talk now about some of the factors that affect our mental health. So what would you say, comments box as well, please, type up what impacts upon your mental health. If you could name one thing, generally or a specific, that impacts upon your mental health or your ability to cope. Yeah. Social support from Sing Out Strong. I would have expected that from Sing Out Strong, and I would hope so, because obviously it's one of the things you guys do really, really well. So yeah, that's a coping mechanism. Physical health. Yeah, absolutely. Physical health has a direct link with mental health. Okay. So for example, the first time I was diagnosed with depression, I didn't feel depressed, but I had an issue every time I did extreme exercise, and I used to race motorbikes off road for two days at a time. But I'd get ill for 2 weeks afterwards, and it was very real physical illness, shortness of breath, all the COVID symptoms, funnily enough, dizziness, shortness of breath, pain, all of that sort of stuff. Didn't have the cough, funnily enough. And it recurred and recurred and recurred, and I ended up going all over the place and ended up in an immunology clinic in Birmingham. And after doing many tests and blood counts and all the rest of it, the professor sat me down and said, "Euan, you're depressed. And you're depressed, and you have been for so long that it's affected your immune system. And your immune system is not strong enough to cope with the level of activity you're doing." And that was how I found out that I need to make some significant changes. Okay. Feeling alone and isolated. Yes. Yes. So feeling alone and isolated, burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. Anybody ever done that? Anybody been out partying longer than they should? Having to get up and go to work in the morning? Anybody overeaten? Yeah. Anybody smoke or has smoked? All of those things affect our mental health. What they're doing is creating stress. Okay. And stress is a building block for mental illness if we're not careful. So I want you to have a look at something. You have to excuse my diagrammatic capabilities as well, if you would please, as well as my spelling. Because this, believe it or not, is a water butt. It may look like a profile picture, but it is actually a water butt. And this is your drain pipe coming down. And your water butt, when we're okay, is kind of, there you go, put a little fish in. If that looks like a fish, then your water butt, it generally runs, okay, and you'll have occasional drops of water coming down and filling up your water bottle, okay, and then you'll take some out, won't you? There's your tap. You'll take some out, and you'll go and do the drawing's getting a bit more dodgy at this stage. You'll go and do your gardening or whatever, and the water level will drop, and so it's okay to take more in. So you imagine this is your ability to contain stress, your stress container. We all have one, and they vary. Some people's stress containers are big, some people's stress containers are quite small, and that will be dependent on life events and all the rest of it. So we all have a stress container, and what we've got is what we've got, and you learn to cope with that stress container. But suddenly we get an event, a life event, which happens. It may be that we have a breakup of a relationship. It might be that friends and family during COVID. And this little trickle suddenly becomes a gush. Okay? And this is gushing in here, and we continue once a week to do our gardening. The water level, the stress level is going to increase, isn't it? And eventually, it's going to overflow, okay? And it's our stress containers are fine when we're managing the water level, when we're managing the levels. And some stress is good for us. It's what makes us get up in the morning, it's what makes us go to work, it's what makes us achieve, okay? But when that stress is bigger, pouring in more than our container can take, that's when it becomes problematic. And when our overflow starts, that's when we start to get mentally ill. That's when we start to get emotionally snapping, when we start to show signs of lacking sleep, stop looking after ourselves. And the other mental health conditions can often build from that point. So what do? We put in more taps, okay? Our taps here, and more buckets if you need them, but more taps, put taps in, and they can be, what do you think a tap might be? Back to the interactive section again. What helps you cope with stress? What do you do to reduce stress? I get on my bike, be it one with an engine or one without an engine. But either way, I get on my bike, okay? Exercise is really, really good for us, okay? And mindfulness is really good for us. Both of those activities involve me concentrating on what I'm doing and not thinking about all the stresses and strains that are going on in my life. Anybody else, any ideas? What works for you? Chat function. Amen. Diet is another thing. Okay, diet is really, really important. It's one of our taps. If you eat well, it helps maintain your mental health. I'm surprised that comment took so long to come through. Singing. Yeah, because it's about contributing, it's about social interaction, it's about being creative, and it's about doing something constructive. Okay, it's also about learning new skills. Yeah, so that's absolutely a tap. It's a really good one too. Okay, and the other one's learning new things, social interaction, staying in contact with friends, and talking. Mindfulness, yeah, being in the moment. If any of you logged in last week when David talked about mind, he mentioned mindfulness and being in the moment. It's a really powerful tool and one that has been around for generations and used in the East a lot. We've lost sight of it in the West, but actually taking some time out to be in the here and now, concentrating on us, where we are, what we're surrounded by, our breathing, and even meditation is a really powerful way. And mindfulness has been scientifically proven now to have positive impacts on the brain. So the brain is like a muscle, and when you carry out mindfulness over a period of time, it becomes more dense. Not dense as in a dense way, but dense as in a strong way. Easy for me to say. Enjoy singing and creative time walking on my dog. Yeah, all of the things that they mentioned. Pets are great, aren't they? Pets are great. You know, that stroking thing, it's very mindful. It's about doing something and caring for something else. Really good things. Okay, so a little bit about stress and its link to other mental health conditions. And it is really a building block. And the better we manage our stress in life, the better we will be. Stroking my friends' pets, yeah, absolutely. That's even better because you don't have to feed them. So thank you, Deborah. And also some stuff about how do we cope with stress? And during COVID, it's been really interesting. So I've noticed a pattern, and we've noticed a pattern more widely across the organisation that people with known mental health issues who had accessed support previously have done better than those who hadn't. And I think one of the reasons is that people who have experienced mental illness have coping mechanisms and they put them in place and they know what to do when those red flags start to show. And also they're aware of the red flags. You know, sometimes we put things down to, oh, it's just a phase, or actually I must have eaten something, or actually, I'm not going to worry about it. So lack of sleep, or headaches, or dizziness, we try and blame on something else. And people who have experienced it often realise that that's linked to a risk factor around mental health and should be checked out. And we should check ourselves out. What's going on for me? Am I stressed here? How full is my container? Okay. So, done the mental health bit. I'm not going to cover much more about, well, I am going to cover more about, but I'm going to focus on the men bit now. Because the title I was given was Men and Mental Health. And as I said, we have set up Hereford Men's Mental Health Group. So if you see that logo, that's what it is. And it is reacting to some specific issues around men's mental health. Mental health MOT, I like that idea. Here's my man, vaguely similar, you can see, other than he hasn't got glasses. I think the body profile is still somewhere about right. Most people know the general statistic around mental health in that roughly 1 in 4, although it is increasing, it's more like 1 in 3 these days. People will suffer with a mental health, a diagnosable mental health condition. 1 in 3 people at some point during their life. So over the period of your life, there will be a point where you could be diagnosed as depressed, diagnosed as having an eating disorder, diagnosed as, any post-traumatic stress disorder, any number of things. But 1 in 3 of us at some point in our lives will have a diagnosable mental health condition. That's a lot, isn't it? Yeah, so if you look around the room you're in, that's quite a lot. And interestingly, men, 1 in 8 at any one time. Okay, at any given time, 1 in 8 men will be suffering with a common mental health disorder. And unfortunately, men are 75% of suicide. People who die by suicide are male, 4 times more likely than women to take their own lives. That's a really serious statistic, and it's one that hasn't improved much over a period of time, although we are, I believe, starting to see some movement in it now, largely because of things like mental health first aid and people starting to talk about it. And people like myself and Phil, I'm not sure Phil's there, but he could well be. Phil will be talking to you on week 3, which is next week, isn't it? Who stand up and talk about it and get men talking about it, and things like Hereford Men's Mental Health Group. Okay, let's start men talking about it. We've got to change this stat. 75% of men, 75% of suicides are male. Why? So why? What is the difference between men and women? Not the biological stuff, not the, multitasking stuff, not all those sexual stereotypes, you don't mind. What is the difference between men and women when it comes to mental health? Well, largely, we believe it's something to do with societal norms. Okay, it's something about perceptions about men having to be strong, the breadwinner, and having to control their emotions, and being told to man up. Thank you, from Sing Out Strong Anthony. Yeah, absolutely. The language we use is really, really important around culture and stereotypes and societal norms. And that man up, is a classic saying, isn't it? Just get on with it. You're a bloke. And actually what that leads to is people finding other ways to deal with it, or not dealing with it at all. Okay. So in its extreme way of dealing with it would be for someone to take their own life or attempt suicide. On the journey, men often turn to self-medication in the form of alcohol or drugs, okay, or risky behaviour sometimes, but alcohol and drugs are often. Men are taught not to show their emotions from a young age, as it will make them seem less of a man. It's such a shame this is the case. Absolutely, Judith. That is, societal norms start very, very early on. We've got to stop this behaviour in the classroom. We've got to stop it with our own children. We've got to encourage our young boys and young men to talk openly about the way they feel. Allow them to know it's okay. And it's okay to cry. And in fact, it's a good thing to cry and show emotion. And actually, you're far stronger doing that than not doing it. That's what we've got to start changing the message to. What we do know is that as a result of some of this, men are far less likely to talk to each other, talk to friends and family, and even access professional services, because of being made to feel that they're less of a man, they haven't manned up, that they're somehow weak, that they're somehow a lesser person as a result of doing that. And the stigma that revolves around mental health is still really, really large. Now, the interesting thing is that I have to say, as somebody who's been very, very open and transparent about my mental health journey and my recovery, I've only ever, and I've spoken to hundreds of people now, and I've trained over 350 people as mental health first aiders. And through that, I talk about my own journey and my experience. And I've only ever had one poor experience out of all that time. And not directly to my face either. What I found generally is people come to me and queue afterwards to talk to me to say, I'm so glad you said that, because I've been in a similar situation and I've been desperate to talk about it. I didn't know how to go about it. And the simple thing is, just start. Just find somebody and tell them how you are feeling. And I don't care who that is. It could be a complete stranger in the pub, although they're likely to move, to be fair. But to be fair, they don't, as a rule. It could be a friend or family member. Your friends and family members will not hate you. Please believe that. They will not. They want to support you. They love you. They really want the best for you. And if you talk to them, they can do that. Could be your GP. GPs are a really good place to call. They deal with this on a regular basis. Remember the stats? 1 in 3 of us, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 of us, at some point in our life, GPs see a lot of mental health issues. They need to see more men. They desperately need to see more men. Men are much less likely to be referred to talking therapists than women, and they're much less likely to talk to GPs about mental health issues as well. Okay, so we don't talk, and you know, I mentioned this early on, and David mentioned in his talk. One of the greatest tools for recovery and treatment is about talking. Okay. The recovery model, which mental health first aid is based on, was largely influenced by a lady called Bex Kitchener. And she does a wonderful talk. And the thing that stays in mind to me says, we were not designed to be a nation of pill takers. That's not who we are. And actually, you're wrong if you think putting a pill in your mouth actually will make things okay. It will help. It will definitely help. And I'm certainly not against people taking mental health medication. I've taken it myself for many, many years. But it's only a part of the solution. It's only part of getting you to a long-term sustained recovery. Long-term sustained recovery is based upon the 5 ways to well-being, which David talked through last week. And we talked through a bit earlier when we said about the stress things. So it's about eating well, exercising well, engaging in learning, social interaction, and I knew I was going to forget the 5th. I'll come back to it. So men do react to mental health issues differently, and they react to life events differently as well. So there is evidence that men have worse outcomes following relationship breaks up and loss of employment. Not sure why. It may be because, of course, they don't talk about it. So they find it hard to talk about the emotions that go alongside relationship breakdown or loss of job, for feeling that actually somehow they will lose face. So the result of all of that is that men are far less likely to seek help. They're far less likely to seek help, and as a result, their outcomes are worse, and that can lead to men attempting suicide. And that's the reality. And suicide is just a huge impact, you know, not just on that individual, but for everybody around them. And every life that's lost through suicide affects many, many others, and generationally. So families of people where somebody has taken their own life and completed suicide are more likely to have poor educational and financial outcomes. They're more likely to attempt suicide themselves. It's that serious. and the more we talk about that, the better it is. And men need to talk about it. Men, if there are any out there listening, because I haven't seen any men's name, I've only seen women's name, you need to talk about your mental health. You need to man up and talk about it, not man up and shut up about it. You need to set the standard for your kids and those around you and say it's okay. And we're big enough and brave enough to open up. Because it's only when we do that that we get well and we have sustained recovery, or more importantly, stop ourselves getting ill in the first place. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my 5 ways of well-being because I knew I wrote it down somewhere. Connect, exercise, be active, help others, and give. That was the one I missed. Helping others, really, really important way of managing some of this stuff as well. Learning new skills, keep the brain active, keep it doing stuff. The devil will make work for idle hands and all that. Same for the brain. Actually, if you don't use it, it'll go off in all sorts of tangents and start doing its own thing, and it's not always constructive stuff. And take notice, the mindfulness, be in the moment, enjoy where you are, what you do, and be grateful. Okay, so that's a bit of a race through. It's difficult in this environment, although I've got the chat box, the interaction is hard, and I'm aware also that for many people sitting in front of a screen for an hour is too much. So we've done half an hour. I think I'm just going to summarise now by talking to you about a little bit about Hereford Men's Mental Health Group, and then taking the questions that you may have. So start typing your questions down there in the comments box, and I'll just update you with where we're at regarding Hereford Men's Mental Health Group. Sorry, that's... So Hereford Men's Mental Health Group, quite simply, is a group of men who have or are at risk of suffering from mental ill health. Set up by myself and Paul Stevens, who both have experienced mental illness. It is a safe environment for men to come and talk to each other and others. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. It's informal. There are no professionals, no assessments, and no judgments. We have a laugh. We have a bit of banter and a bit of fun, probably a bit like Sin Strung, to be quite honest, but we can't sing. So we sit around, we have a barbecue in the summer, we talk about all sorts of things, not just about mental ill health. There is no requirement to sign up to the group. There is no charge. We have luckily received, we're very grateful for some funding from Hereford Community Foundation, because we are trying to put together a book of writing. We encourage people to be creative and write about mental health. Please do have a look at www.furtherbeyond.net to see some really, really interesting and powerful writing by men in Herefordshire about the mental health journeys. We are hoping to turn that into a book, which will then fund the group going forward. But the group is informal. It's run by volunteers, by myself and Paul, and it's attended by people as and when they feel the need. It's supported by a WhatsApp group at which people can reach out day or night, and somebody will respond. We've had numerous people through the group so far. We started at the very end of last year and then obviously ran into lockdown very early on. I think there is something about being face-to-face for men, if I'm honest. The evidence shows that even though men struggle with traditional models, they will access support if they think it is appropriate for them, that is accessible for them, and that it is meaningful. Obviously, the men's that attend find it is those things. We have had amazing feedback from people who attended a group who have said that they were actively suicidal and that we saved a life, and all we did was listen. All we did was listen and give them the opportunity to talk, and give them an environment where they felt they could. And I think that's really important. I intend to see the group grow. We may move. At the moment, we're meeting once a month on the second Monday of the month. We work in conjunction with United in the community, either at their premises at Victoria Park during the summer, where we can have a barbecue, or at their premises in Blackfriars Street during the winter, when it doesn't have outside space, but it's a bit closer to town. We are open to anybody. We say over the age of 18, but we have had people slightly younger than that if we felt there's a need and we can be suitable. Through lockdown, I think we've had 6 new members, and we're now up towards about 30 active members on the WhatsApp group, I think. Small number of those are regularly active, more dip in and out as they feel the need. But the amazing thing is that every single person who's walked through that door said that when they walked in, they didn't expect to talk. They thought they were going to sit and listen. And without fail, every single one of them has talked through what they're going through, talked to other people about it, had advice, laughed about it, cried about it, shouted about it, but they've talked about it, and they've come back. So I think that tells you the value and what you need to know about Hereford Men's mental health group. We would love to expand our connection with Sing Out Strong. However, I can't get any of them to sing at the moment. I do keep pushing it, and I am encouraging them to join you guys and sing. I know I'm not going to lead by example. But the more we can do together, the better. If you know anybody, know any men that are struggling, then please do put them in contact with me. My name's Euan McPherson. My phone number is 07432 019 404. And my email address is euan.mcpherson, that's EUAN.MCPHERSON at the numerical 4il.co.uk. Okay, questions. I've got some coming through. So, how did you know when to seek help? The reality is I didn't the first time. And, you know, the reality was for me that it took being physically ill over a period of time and seeking help for physical illness for a long time before I got ill with my first bout of clinical depression. The second time, and possibly the subsequent times when I've been really ill, it's been very clear to me, and usually following it was following a relationship breakdown for me, and I just stopped functioning. Couldn't eat, couldn't cook, and actually it was a case of I was sectioned. I was sectioned on a couple of occasions, went involuntary for a couple of occasions. So now I have a wellness action plan. I have things I look out for, bizarre things. So one of the triggers for me, and it will be different for everybody, is if I'm going downstairs in the morning, I get pain across the top of my feet. That for me is a really big red flag, because it means I'm starting to get stressed. Okay. Everybody will have different symptoms, and once you've been through it, you will start to know. What I would say is if you've got persistent niggling physical health issues, do a mental MOT. Do a checkout saying, what's going on in my life? What am I stressed about? What am I doing to manage my stress, etc., etc. So I hope that answers the question on did I know when to get help? No, was the simple answer, but I do now. Please can you post up the info about the book? Could you, I will put in the comments the website address, www.further. Now you're seeing my inability to type as well, beyond, not when I'm being watched. Furtherbeyond.net. And the details about submitting writing be on there. We've got nothing published yet about the book because it's something that's in progress, but we will share the information with Sing Out Strong as and when we've got something ready to go to production. And we're hoping later in this year we'll have enough writing and artwork. So if anybody wants to contribute, go to furtherbeyond.net, submit your writing. If you want some coaching around creative writing, around mental health issues and men, around mental health issues. If you want some free coaching, Leonie Gregson, that runs that website, will be able to help you out. And she's fantastic. She's really, really good at what she does. The guys that have engaged with her, including myself, have nothing but positive feedback. So really good opportunity there for people. And it's great to write about it. It's a very cathartic process. Could you give the information about the mental first aid course for anyone who may be interested? I will indeed. So mental health first aid offer a range of courses, and they run from mental health first aid light, which is a half-day session, mental health first aid ambassador, not ambassador, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a long day, sorry. And then mental health first aid instructor, which is the certificated 2-day course. I tend to run far more of the certificated 2-day courses. We run those through SIL. Phil Gilbert Smith, who's talking to you later, also runs the courses. I think Phil does a lot of the 1-day courses as well as the 2-day. And he can tell you more about his availability. But if you look on the SIL website, which is www.s4il, I will put this up, .co.uk, and have a look around on there, or contact us with the contact details, either through contact us at s4il.co.uk or ring us, and we will tell you about the courses that are coming up and availability. What I will say is that we offer that out at cost, because we are a voluntary sector provider. We're a charity. We don't seek to profit. And because we deliver it to all our staff as a mandatory requirement, it means we can offer places out at a very reasonable rate. Sorry, I missed the beginning. Unfortunately, how can you encourage men to open up? Few men I know not even meet up for coffee. Yeah, Pat, that's a really, really interesting question. There's no simple answer apart from keep trying to have the conversation with them. And if somebody doesn't want to open up there and then, let them know that you are there should they wish to. And sometimes it feels a bit like badgering. I think it is with men a difficult step to take sometimes because of all the societal norms that we spoke about men having to appear to be strong and not show emotion and, not being weak and all that stuff. And it takes some breaking down, but keep going, keep asking. The approach is the key thing. Keep asking people to talk and let them know that it's okay to talk too, that actually it's fine, you're not going to make any judgments. And if they don't want to talk there and then, just say, look, you know where I am, you know how to get hold of me if you need to speak to me. The other thing, if you're really concerned about somebody and if you think they may be suicidal, is to, you can even contact somebody on their behalf. If you think somebody's actively suicidal, then I would phone 111 and say, I'm really concerned about this individual. If it's somewhere in between and you're starting to get really worried about somebody, they're just not interacted, what you can do is put information through their letterbox or post it to them or email it to them. Things like Samaritan. Yeah, Samaritan's a fantastic service. They're really, really highly trained. And they really help people, and they're there day and night. So, they're professional organisations, professionally trained, that can offer that level of support. Sometimes people won't talk to you, and it is a sad thing, but I am sure that if you keep asking and you provide the right support and you let people know that it's okay, you're not going to judge them, they will open up eventually. Okay. Tell us more about your wellness action plan. What other things can we do? Okay, so here's a plug for Mind. So David spoke about Mind last week. One of the things that's on the Mind website you can download is their wellness action plan. It's a fantastic resource. So there's a wellness action plan for the individual, and there's also a wellness action plan for employers. So you can have one in the workplace, you can have one for friends and family and yourself. And it literally goes through what are your red flags? If you've suffered with mental health issues before, what are the red flags? What are the things we need to look out for? What are the things you're going to look out for yourself? And then importantly, what should we do if we start seeing those red flags? So I give you permission to talk to my line manager if you see that I start behaving in X sort of way. If you see me withdraw, if you see that my timekeeping starts slipping, if you see that actually I come in and I'm looking unkempt and not looking after myself, or actually I give you permission to contact a friend or family on my behalf if you start to worry about my mental health, if I start hearing voices, if I start seeing things that aren't there, if I start saying that I'm not sleeping, whatever the red flag is for that individual, whatever the condition is, you can have a wellness action plan around it. And it is, so what? I've seen this. You've told me to look out for this. So what? What do I do now? And that's the wellness action plan. mind.co.uk, look at their website and download it from there. It's on their resources page. Tell us more. Say more about the Writers Workshop. So Further Beyond .net isn't a workshop, it's a website. It's run by a creative writing coach and a writer herself. It was set up independent of Hereford Men's Mental Health Group. Just so happened that it was about the same time, and we met up and we've made a relationship between the two. You do not have to be a member of Men's Mental Health Group to contribute to Further Beyond. And actually, we're really, really encouraging any men in Herefordshire to write about mental health and get it on that website. And then hopefully we can put together a local resource, a book that other people can get inspiration from, that people can get solace from, that people can realize that they're not alone, because that's really, really important around mental health as well. When you're suffering and you're not feeling well, is to have something that shows that you're not alone, that other people suffer too. So furtherbeyond.net is the website. Leonie will offer coaching. You'll have to now find out from her about her availability, because I know that she's trying to work as well, as we all do, and whether she's still got gaps and placements. But if not, she will certainly critique and feedback on any submissions if she's requested to. Also looking for artwork to go into there as well. So if people draw instead of write, then fine, draw about mental health. Send it in. So it's not a workshop, it's a website, but there is a coach behind it, and she's very talented. So that's strong. Phil will be on October the 1st. There you go, Phil Gilbert-Smith, another mental health first aid instructor, active in Herefordshire. There are a few of us. Phil and I know, do quite a lot. Phil does out of county as well, but his main business is mental health first aid. And as I said, we do it because we do it as a mandatory requirement for all our staff. And a thank you. Well, thank you, Pat. Now, any further questions? I hope some men will watch this later, would be so helpful and food for thought. I hope so too. The more we can encourage men to watch this sort of thing, the better. The more we can get men to talk about this sort of thing, even better still. If I can help with that in any way, if you know somebody that's really struggling and you want them just to have an opportunity, then please, by all means, point them in my direction. I will happily have a first conversation with them. I'm not saying I've got the answers to everything. I haven't, but what I often can do is signpost people and encourage them to take that first step about opening up. Sometimes it's easier to open up to a stranger than it is to friends and family, particularly for men. Any other questions? No? On that then, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to what I've had to say. I hope that you found it useful. Talk. You'll see it as a constant theme as we talk about mental health awareness and opening up. It's about talking. It's about having a conversation and keeping those conversations going and making people aware that it is absolutely okay to talk about mental health and talk about suicide. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Have a good weekend, and carry on singing.